What up, everybody? Welcome to Operation Mock Show. As always, I'm your host, Chris Roscoe, and today I have my first guest ever, Stirling Cooper. Thank you so much for being here, my man.
Absolute pleasure, mate.
It's great to see you, man. I haven't seen you in, like 2 or 3 years, something like that?
Since Guadalajara.
Yeah.
That was when we met.
At a steakhouse cigar lounge in Guadalajara, Mexico. It's probably the coolest place to meet you that I could have imagined. And we had a great conversation the day that I met you. So as soon as I found out you were in town, I wanted to come on and have you talk about your insane life experience, what you learned through porn, and hopefully shed some light that can help everyone else dealing with this sort of stuff get some clarity. And because the thing I like about your approach with the porn, is you don't have a pearl clutching attitude about it. You know, you don't have like the conservative, scary, oh my God, it's a tool of the devil. You're just like, no, it's not good for you.
Yeah.
So I respect that a lot. So, but first I actually want to get into a little bit of your life story, because I'm just really curious about this. Because you grew up in the Australian outback, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, we'd call it the bush. Like, there's a technical difference between like the outback and like just rural Australia.
Okay.
I mean, an American wouldn't probably see the distinction.
Fair enough.
But I do as an Australian.
Amazing. So how do you go from being in the bush to being like, I want to become a porn star? How did that process happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, tiny 3,000 person farming town was where I grew up, like in the bush, like in the middle of the forest and stuff. Very little exposure to like glitz and glamour like you have here in LA.
Yeah.
Right. And kind of a little bit sheltered or whatever. So that shelteredness kind of manifested itself into like a ridiculous sex drive, I guess.
That makes sense.
And I would say honestly a degree of perversion, if I'm being completely honest.
Sure.
Upright about it, and ended up moving to like the nearest city. Where I did my university degree, and then I started dabbling in like online dating and things like that. And a friend of mine introduced me to this website, which I think still exists, called Red Hot Pie, which was like think of like Plenty of Fish back in the day, like the old school dating websites. Think of that, but it's purely for the swingers scene. Okay. And I was like, this seems like a super easy way to get laid.
Sure.
And it turned out I was correct, because I was like kind of charming. And most of the dudes on that website were just super fucking creepy.
Sure.
Hope I can swear.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, so I started getting invited to like parties and stuff by like single girls in the scene who you call unicorns. So they would invite me as their +1 to parties. And I remember my first ever party. I was super, super nervous to go into the door, right? And I'm parked outside this apartment building, whatever, in my car, listening to some music, and to this day, the song that was playing as I was sitting in that car, if I listen to it, I still get butterflies.
I bet.
It was Latch by Disclosure. That's the name of the song. That was the song. So you can find that.
It's etched in there now.
Yep, it's permanently etched in there. And I'm sitting outside this apartment. I'm seeing like couples walk into this apartment, obviously wearing like the ladies are wearing big fur coats. So, you know, they're wearing just lingerie underneath and shit. And I'm like, don't know if I can do this.
How old were you at this point?
That was like 25.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, something like that. And the girl who invited me was already in the party, and I was like, all right, stuff it. I almost drove away, and I was like, no, let's go. Went inside, realized it was just like a regular house party. There wasn't anything like super, until everyone started taking their clothes off. And that was when I kind of realized I'm like an exhibitionist. Because it got to this point of like me putting on a show for like the party with a couple of girls, and I'm like, most people probably can't do this.
Yeah.
Most people probably wouldn't get energy from that. They'd probably most guys get shy in that scenario.
Sure.
And I was like, I'm getting energy from it.
You got a boost from it.
Yeah, I got a kick out of it. I'm like, this is cool. And then I was in that scene for a couple of years, and the women I was meeting in that scene also happened to dabble in like escorting and in pornography. And they were all telling me, it was like over the course of like 2 years, I had about 4 or 5 different women say, you should try doing porn. You'd probably be good at it.
That's probably one of the best ways to get into porn that I can imagine.
Being recommended by someone
being like,
else.
hey, you'd be good at this. You should try this.
Exactly, because it's super hard to get into the industry in the first place.
I'm sure, especially as a man.
I mean, and I was in Australia at this time.
Yeah,
like there's a tiny like industry in Melbourne, and there's really only like 2 websites, companies, or whatever, that shoot guy-girl porn or whatever, and I managed to get in touch with one of them, send him like a demo reel that I filmed with like some swingers or whatever, and he gave me a shot. He was like, this is the most professional application I've ever received. Gave me a shot.
Wow.
And the first person I worked with, she was actually an American porn star that they'd flown out to Australia to work with. And she told me, you're really good at this. You should keep doing this.
Wow.
My first scene. So like, I had all this like sort of positive affirmation to be like, yeah, you could probably pull this off if you really stuck to it.
It's so funny how like contrary that is to what I would conjure up when I think of a guy going into porn.
What would you think? What would you think?
I don't know. You kind of think of like it would, because it seems like an adolescent fantasy. You know, like when I was a kid, I was just like, yeah, obviously I want to go fucking do that. Like obviously, but I didn't have like women in the industry saying, "Wow, you're really good at this. You should go do this."
Right.
I imagine it's probably just horny dudes being like, "I want to get paid to fuck."
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's a lot more professional than people think. It's not a giant party. Like once you get onto set, obviously you can have fun and stuff. It's actually a very fun work environment because everyone's cracking jokes. There's no HR department. You can make a dick joke and no one's going to get offended.
Totally.
So you can have a real fun time, and there's like a lot of camaraderie, especially between like the directors and like the camera crew and those kind of guys that you see all the time. You develop as a guy. You actually develop more of a camaraderie with those people than the women, because like that director, I'm seeing him maybe like 5-6 times a month, but I'm only working with that one girl like once every 6 months maybe. So just because you're around these people more, like you start cracking jokes, and it becomes a really, really fun work environment.
So it is an enjoyable work environment.
It's a really enjoyable work environment, and obviously, as a guy, it's like you're getting paid to like get your dick sucked. Like, hooray, this is fantastic.
Yeah, is it the fantasy that like people think it is?
But it's not. No, it's not that. It's really not. It's not this big party. It's not like It's not a like a carefree kind of orgy or anything like that. It's very structured and professional, and you have to get certain shots, and it's kind of very uncomfortable at times. And you're having sex for the camera. You're having sex for the viewer. You're not having sex for yourself. If that makes sense. And you're not having sex for your partner either.
Like the girl.
No. God,
what's that like? You don't even like her.
You have to go into a very dark place. So kind of like that, like makeups. Breakup sex. Like when you makeup sex. We want to call it.
Yeah, because you have to like conjure some kind of attraction there.
Yeah. So you have to find some way to get in that zone, especially if you don't have not very.
This actually reminds me of something you said the day I met you. We were talking about this, and you said that you have the ability to find something attractive in any woman.
That's true. Yeah.
Can you say a little bit about that? Because I didn't ask you, but I'm actually curious about it.
Yeah, so that was kind of something I also realized that would help me do this job, and that's very, very common amongst all the male porn stars that I've ever met. We can all find something about a woman that is beautiful, physically attractive.
And so you just kind of laser focus on that?
Yeah, that's the idea. Like one of those laser pointers. You just like, that's the thing I'm paying attention to, and I'm kind of blocking out everything else.
And what's that like to do that?
I don't know. That's
an interesting thing to do.
I like it because it allows me to make her feel beautiful, which I think is obviously every woman has insecurities, especially really beautiful women. Really beautiful women have a lot more insecurities than the average girl. Then most people wouldn't understand that. But if you're able to, laser-like focus in on one aspect of a woman and make her feel beautiful because of that, it creates a really good chemistry between the two of you.
And that's one of the things I liked about you, and why I wanted to have you on here, is because you actually have a surprisingly wholesome view on a lot of these things. And it's like
odd, isn't it?
It is very odd. And that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to illuminate for everybody, is that like there's a way to look at this that like, especially for a guy that left the industry, for you to have a kind of wholesome view on it while still leaving. Like, that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I don't think that as I've gotten out of the industry and I reflect back on it and I look at especially the effect that it has on young men, I don't think it is the best thing in the world.
Sure.
Honest to God. And it's a lot of guys go down a dark rabbit hole with it, and it screws up their life.
Totally.
They can't. They have bedroom problems with their partners. They develops into relationship problems. It develops into motivation problems throughout the rest of their life. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's the greatest thing on earth.
And is that part of why you got out?
It was a combination of reasons, honestly. It was one, COVID hit, and so we all the industry shut down for a couple of months, and during that time, I've obviously no paychecks coming, and I'm like, all right, what am I doing now?
Sure.
And I'd actually, oddly enough, I'd been writing my first book like 6 months prior to that.
Nice.
I'd like every weekend I'd go into the shed and I'd just write a few chapters, and that was building up. And then that COVID happened, industry shut down, and I'm like, okay, well, let's publish this thing already, so I can, maybe it'll be a little bit of change on the side. And that it was actually Rollo Tomasi had me on his show a few weeks after I launched the book, because COVID hit and everyone was talking about OnlyFans, because OnlyFans blew up then, became like a household name within a few months because of
totally
all these women were at home, all these dudes were at home horny, doing nothing but sitting around jerking off, and all these women were unemployed now, and like, how can I make a buck?
Yeah.
And they all turned
I
OnlyFans.
remember it went from being like some of the women I knew to like pretty much like 70% of them.
Oh yeah.
It was
it's massive.
wild to watch.
And that OnlyFans had been around at the time. I think it had been around for 2 or 3 years prior to that. Yeah, people don't realize that. It didn't just start then.
You can't beat that timing, man.
Because people in our industry had been using it already. You know, like on the professional side, they'd already been dabbling in it, and then everyone jumped on the bandwagon. And obviously, so Roller Tomasi had me on his show to talk about that because I had an inside knowledge, and obviously I'm red pilled, you know, and I'm a fan of his work, a good friend of mine now, and then that kind of exploded, and I met his group of friends, and they all kind of encouraged me to start a YouTube channel, and that's when things kind of really took off.
Amazing.
And it was so it was that, and it was the fact that I wanted to get out of Los Angeles, honestly.
Yeah.
No offense to all you here who live here.
We all agree, bro. We all agree.
But I ran away from LA to go to Florida. I also ran away to Europe for a little bit, trying to outrun COVID really, like, and the regulations, and find a place that wasn't, you know, locked down and made you wear masks and all this stuff. Ended up in Portugal for like the summer.
Nice.
It eventually caught up there. And then, so it was that combination, and then it was also the fact that for 5 years, whilst I'm in the industry, I was not able to express my honest opinions on things.
Got it.
Because the adult industry is extremely like woke, left-wing social justice warrior. That's the culture, I mean, which makes sense because it's California.
Sure.
Like, so think just the Californian liberal kind of ideology culture.
And I find most things relevant to sex kind of have to be, because there's just so many things to be accepting of and expressing of that it's just like they tend to kind of lean that way. Like, you're not going to find like a conservative orgy.
Well,
maybe you will.
I'm just trying to think if I've ever been to a conservative orgy. You know, the funny thing is, I know I could count on one hand the number of female porn stars who are openly conservative. Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I can only think of 2. But the funny thing is,
ideologically, they're kind of opposed.
Yeah, but I mean, you could count me as like right-wing conservative-ish in a way as well. Like with all my political leanings, economic leanings, like my wholesome, I guess you said, attitude towards like family and relationships and things. Oddly enough, the only thing where I'm kind of pervert, like not conservative, I would say, is like that I would like I have multiple partners and, you know, raunchy, kinky sex.
Amazing.
So that's, you know, for me, I actually find that I get a lot of flack online from religious types. In particular, for some reason, particularly Christians. I'm not really sure why, but they would be surprised if we ever sat down like and had a conversation like this. They would probably come out of the conversation surprised at how much we had in common.
Yeah, totally.
Compared to like the average Californian.
Because I have similar leanings. You know, I like independence and freedom, and it's strange that those things have become right wing because I thought those were things everybody agreed on.
Well, the word liberalism used to mean that.
Yeah, exactly.
Ironically enough.
Yeah, I was like I don't like what you're saying, but I'll defend your right to say it to the death kind of guy because I thought that's, you know, just how things worked. However, now I'm finding that this interesting intersection of being sexually open, but apparently like philosophically conservative is a strange place to be in because it's hard to find people to bond with in that intersection.
It's really, really hard. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that. I don't expect the rest of the world to kind of, you know, march to the same tune as me. So it kind of makes you a unique person. It makes you hard to figure out. People can't, you know, put you in a box. Exactly. And I kind of like that. Totally. I can't be put in a box like that.
Which is one of the things I like about you. Why I wanted to have you on. But I also wanted to ask you, you don't have an OnlyFans, right?
I used to.
Yeah. But you could be cleaning up on that. Like, why?
Yeah, I mean, like, I just didn't like talking to my fans, honestly.
Fair enough.
And if I'm going to be honest, it was because as a straight male porn star, like all your fans are gay dudes. And like I got nothing, you know, against gay guys and stuff, but it was just like I wouldn't sit there and chat back and forth with them because I'm like, I'm not into dudes, so I'm not gonna sit here and like talk back and forth.
It's a lot of energy to pretend.
Yeah.
To like feed a thing
and you know what? The same thing. Women who run OnlyFans accounts have the exact same issue.
I'm sure.
Which is why a lot of the biggest female OnlyFans accounts are run by a guy behind the scenes doing or like a bunch of Filipinos literally doing all the typing for that on behalf of that girl and making a percentage of the money.
And that's one of the wildest things.
They don't like to talk to their own fans either. And they're attracted to men, but they're not attracted to those men.
Yep.
Right?
And they don't want to have to say the right things at the right times, and it's just got to get a little gross at a certain point.
Yeah, it's people are like men are dark and twisted in a lot of ways.
Sure.
You know, and I've seen behind the curtain. I've seen like, you know, obviously co-stars and stuff who've shown me their Instagram DMs, who've shown me their OnlyFans DMs and things like that. Yeah, and some dudes are really. I mean, I'm perverted, but I don't like. I'm perverted in like a charming way, I want to think.
I think the life you've been able to create for yourself is mirroring that back to you pretty well.
Right. You know, whereas a lot of guys will be perverted in that sort of private, secluded way, and
what do you think?
And they're kind of just ashamed because they're kind of ashamed about it too, which is why they resort to that in like through the medium of OnlyFans rather than doing it with a partner.
Well, what do you think the difference is between a guy who's perverted in a charming way and a guy who's perverted in a creepy way? Like, what does this guy have that this one doesn't?
Well, the charming guy is actually attractive to women.
Okay.
That's the difference. It really comes down to that. Like she's.
Do you think you mean like physically?
Yeah, physically and personality wise. And
okay. So you don't. What if it was like a jacked dude, good looking dude, objectively good looking, wealthy, all the shit, but he still shows up kind of creepy?
Yeah, it's totally possible, man.
Like, what is there a difference between those guys? Like, is there a way of
it's the way he owns it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, the way a guy can, because you have to be unapologetic with you know your desire. As long as your desires are consensual and you're not hurting anybody. Obviously, like, you know, that's sort of a blanket statement that should be applied to anything really. Mm-hmm. But if you're owning your fetishes and your kinks and your desires, then your partner can actually feel comfortable in indulging them with you. Mm-hmm. If you're ashamed and shy and nervous and you know insecure about your own fetishes and kinks and desires and what you want in the bedroom from your partner, well, she's going to feed off of that kind of insecure energy, and it's actually going to make her feel unsafe. Yeah. Ironically enough, you know, let's take BDSM as an example. If you wanted to get kinky into BDSM, the only way you're going to be able to do that successfully is if you, as the man, are confident in it in the first place and are comfortable in it. Because that's the only way she can actually feel comfortable in it with you. Totally. Because you have to lead her through that experience.
Yeah, and so with that, I find something that a lot of guys struggle with is the ability to own their desires without being attached to them. You know, it's like, here's what I want, but like if I don't get it, I'm going to be crushed or I'm going to be mad or I'm going to be whatever. So it's like, how do you own the desire while also being okay with not getting it?
That's a really, really good observation. Yeah, because that attachment to it, like, they'll come into that interaction. I'm just thinking of a hypothetical interaction, right, between a guy and his partner. He's insecure. Let's say I get guys messaging me about this pretty frequently too. Like, let's say the guy's a foot fetish, right, and he's insecure about his foot fetish or whatever, and he tries to bring it up with his partner. He's bringing it up in an insecure, low self-esteem way in the first place. But then if he shuts him down, he feels like it sort of doubles down on him feeling like he's degenerate and perverted or, you know, like wrong for having that kink in the first place. Versus if you just don't give a crap. Like, you own it, you don't give a crap. It's like, she's not into it? Okay, cool. Big deal. We can do it. We can do plenty of other things.
Totally.
You know?
Do you have advice for a guy who does give a shit? Who like wants to become the guy who doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, it's you kind of got to put yourself through that scenario again and again and again to really not be able to give a shit.
Yeah,
you look at anyone who's kind of can't be fucked with. They've really just gone through more crap than anyone else.
Totally.
You know,
it's like exposure therapy.
Yeah, I mean, that's why old people tend not to give as much of a crap as young people, right?
Totally, yeah.
They've lived their life, man. I don't care about the opinions. Like, you know, this trope of like the old racist grandma. She doesn't care what she says around Thanksgiving dinner table because she's been through her life. What are you going to do? Cancel me? Totally. I've got all my grandkids. Screw you. I'm going to say racist things. So like it's an extreme example, but that's kind of the same attitude. Is like, you just have to put yourself through enough stuff it's actually realizing fundamentally it's you realizing that people don't actually care about you, they care about themselves.
Yeah.
Really. Like, a lot of people walk through this world worried about, oh, what will this person think of me? What will that person think of me? Like, if I'm not dressed perfectly or I say something stupid. Most people don't give a crap about you. They are only focused on themselves. And so I think once people can realize that, truly internalize that idea, they become a lot more free.
Yeah. And an understanding that on some level, almost everybody wants to be seduced.
Yeah.
Almost everybody wants to be the object of desire and to be pursued in a certain kind of way. Like, it's intoxicating.
Totally. I mean, especially women. Like, women derive a lot of their sexual satisfaction from being seen as beautiful, for being seen as a sex object by their man. It's like appeasing to the female ego to know that she can get her partner off because she's so sexy to him.
And that's an interesting thing, because it's like another one of the things that stops guys from really owning their desires is not wanting to seem creepy, not wanting to seem all these sort of things. And so with what you were just saying, that kind of puts guys in a little bit of a danger that they don't know how to deal with. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I tend to teach guys is, if they have that problem, if they have, say, nerves around that, is I give them this framework of a mental model I call the selfish pervert frame.
I love that, dude.
So the idea is to think of your partner as like your sexual muse, right? Your inspiration for your lust, okay? And you're coming at it from, you're not just coming at that sexual interaction from a purely perverted point of view or a purely selfish point of view. Because if it was purely selfish, she wouldn't climax, she wouldn't have fun.
There's no connection.
Yeah, there's nothing there, right? You're treating her like a piece of meat, right? And if it was purely perverted, but you're just like focusing on her entirely, you're not focusing on yourself, well, that isn't actually fantastic either, because a lot of women don't like. The paradox of trying to please a woman is that if she knows you're trying to please her, it'll put her in her head and make it less likely that you can please her in the first place.
And you're not even physically there. There's nothing for her to connect with.
Yep, you're not present.
Yeah.
Right? So I tell guys, try to combine these two elements together in this selfish pervert frame of mind, where she's the object of your lust, your sexual muse, and you're doing things to her for your own perverse pleasure and desire, and she's kind of along for the ride, along this roller coaster ride. And you get off on getting her off because you can it's like you know her body better than she does. And at least that's what I kind of tap into mentally, right?
It's like playing an instrument.
Yeah.
Like
you've got
to it,
mastery over it.
Exactly.
Right? And you get into that flow state.
Totally.
I'm sure you get into that when you're playing music. And it's just, once you're in that flow state, everything's going well. Like, she's present, you're present, and you're both able to experience things the way you want to experience it. And there's no shame around that because you're owning that. You're owning the fact that you are engaging in that like lustful pursuit of your partner.
Yep. And there's an important distinction there, because I love that you brought that in. I'm just so stoked, because the thing that I've been noticing recently is that they have the whole don't objectify women. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but don't entirely objectify them. Like, don't lose the person. To a certain level, everybody kind of enjoys being objectified to a certain level, but what they don't like is when you lose the person.
Right.
And so it's like, a lot of guys are like in the camp of purely objectify or don't objectify at all, but there's a middle ground where you see the objectification, but you don't lose the person.
I like
and
that.
So you're engaging with the object and the person simultaneously, and you get to like dance in that dynamic.
Oh yeah.
Amazing.
That's a really unique observation. I like that. I mean, the idea that women don't like to be objectified is obviously false to like anyone who's been with a woman in the bedroom. Like, if I tell my girlfriend this pussy belongs to me, she gets wetter. She doesn't dry up and like, oh, that's unattractive. No, that's objectification, literally objectification.
Yeah.
But it's done in an attractive, dominant way, and it's done in a way that women enjoy.
I even have a friend in the studio right now who is a stand-up comedian, and she does a joke about dating a feminist guy and loving the respect, but being frustrated that she has to remind him to objectify her. And that's like in her stand-up routine.
See, that's where I feel sorry for guys they've been told, like most of us who've lived in the Western world have been told, men, from childhood, we've been told all these fundamental lies about the way that men and women interact in a healthy and an attractive way, and it just sets guys up for so much failure and frustration. And it's not until they finally start to get experience or they're exposed to different kinds of content where they can learn about the way the world really works that like this veil is lifted and they're like, oh, okay, this is actually how things work. If you're not getting the results you want in life, it's fundamentally because your worldview is wrong.
Yeah, totally.
The way you think the world operates is got to be wrong, because it should be a really simple case of, if I do this, this will happen. And if that isn't happening, then there's something wrong with it.
You're viewing the problem incorrectly.
Yeah, you think like the equation's wrong, or your map is wrong. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of guys who are super frustrated with women because their mental model of how women are is fundamentally backwards, and that's not their fault really, because
really isn't.
either they didn't have a father figure who was able to teach them the way the world really works, or they were raised on like Disney cartoons and things like this, which all perpetuate the lie. Like things like Lion King, Aladdin, just like a couple that come to my mind. Like, and you might think those cartoons aren't about like relationships. What are you talking? They are, all of them. Like
at their core, they are romance.
All of it, and even if it's two lions interacting, they still portray the wrong dynamic, which fools men from early childhood into thinking, oh, that's how like men and women interact. That's like, because there's always one of like disrespect when you look at it fundamentally. There's always all these examples through like Hallmark romantic comedies, like these Disney cartoons and things. There's always an element of the woman being disrespectful to the guy. And then somehow, magically, at the end, she comes around and falls in love with him. That never happens in real life. Like, if a woman doesn't respect a man, she ain't falling in love with him.
That's a hard lesson, man. I've lost a lot of good women that way. That was a very hard lesson to learn. Is that like if you don't show up in a certain way, they lose respect for you, and you never get it back.
Yeah, you can't get it back.
Like it's insane. Like there's a lot of things you can be forgiven for, but once respect is lost, it's like you might as well be dead.
Yeah, you don't really exist as a man to her anymore.
And that's wild to see firsthand. Because it's like you hear that, and then you face the reality of it, and you're like, holy shit, the world is so much colder than I realized. Like, I really have to like become the right kind of person to make the life I want.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place for guys to get to, is to realize how cold a cold and harsh truth of the world, the way it actually is, because no one's coming to save you. Like, you're an adult now. Like, you have to look after yourself as a man. The society ain't here to help you. You've got to make your own way, and it's because of this blank slate equalism idea that is perpetuated through the Western world, the idea that men and women are exactly the same in every regard. Men grow up with this idea that, oh, women are looked after in society, so men must be looked after in society, which is fundamentally not the truth. No one gives a crap about the homeless man sleeping under the underpass here. No one gives a crap.
Yeah, we all walk past him every day.
We all walk past him. No one however, if it more times than not, if it's a homeless woman, someone actually helps her out.
Yeah.
And this is just one example. I'm cherry picking, but
no, there's statistics to match that. There's
exactly.
One men's home in Los Angeles where there's like 300 women's homes.
There you go.
We just don't have it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's wrong for men to look after women. I think that is men's job.
Yeah, we literally need more women's homes than men's homes. Yeah. The numbers add up, but it's
also the case of men shouldn't go through life being fooled into thinking that they're going to be taken care of the same way that women are taken care of.
Or that will be valued, because I was going to talk about this before, is like we get objectified as well, but for a different way.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like when I'm doing the like man object thing, and I'm providing and I'm protecting and I'm doing the thing, and I'm clearly being that thing, and I'm seen as an object, I actually like it. Yeah,
I mean, it's like I'm fulfilling my role as a protector and a provider.
Exactly.
And she's acknowledging that. Great. Everyone's happy.
And the distinction is, again, like, does the person still see me as a person? Do they appreciate me for what I'm doing? Does what I'm bringing like fuel them to give more energy to me? Or is it this mutual, like, all you are is a body, all you are is a wallet, fuck you, meet my needs, and then I'll meet someone else later?
That's a really good point. And that's where guys can get kind of taken advantage of as wallets, like you might say. Foodie dates, or like a sugar daddy kind of situation, where the woman, like, he is purely a monetary source for her, and there's no like connection with him as a person. And him providing monetarily she doesn't feel incentivized in any way to give anything else back to him, except maybe sex, and maybe his her
just
presence.
To placate him.
Right.
Like boring, like, is this over sex?
Right. And guys need to recognize when they're being taken advantage of like that, I think, because it's no one enjoys that. The women don't really enjoy it.
Yeah.
The women who are engaging it don't really enjoy it because they don't respect those men.
And that's more faulty education for the men, is because we're taught that, like, yeah, okay, you don't want to be the like stupid simp. So the opposite is like, go be the rich jacked guy, but don't develop your character at all.
Right.
Have the only thing you bring of value be money and muscles.
Yeah.
And like, that'll be enough.
Which is fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty, especially in, cities like LA, I guarantee you would know a bunch of like broke musicians who charm the pants off women everywhere you go.
It's insane to watch.
Right.
It's absolutely insane to watch.
But that tells you that there's fundamentally something that women are looking for that people aren't talking about, and it's that emotional need that he is fulfilling something for her emotionally that the guy who's like, say, jacked and just has a bunch of money isn't fulfilling for her because he's neglected that secret source in the dynamic between men and women, which is like your ability to evoke emotions out of her. Like the analogy I like to use is you want to be the guy in control of the emotional roller coaster, like in your relationship, because if women fundamentally need drama in some way, like the reason telenovelas are popular is because women are addicted to drama. Right?
That's why they don't watch porn; they read it.
Yes, and it's always a story involved in their this literature and stuff. And it's always a story of like transformation, and he's like the dark, brooding guy, and she changes him in some way, or he kind of like feels attached to her in some way. But there's an emotional roller coaster involved in that storytelling, which she taps into and allows her to actually enjoy it sexually too. But if you're
because those same waves of emotion are the same waves of sensation.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. And if you as a man, and this might sound bad, but if you as a man in the relationship aren't in control of the drama, if you're not in control of that, then she's gonna start the drama. It's always way better when the guy's in charge.
And what do you mean by that exactly?
So I mean like, because women need the up and the down. In like, that's why I like the analogy of an emotional roller coaster, right? Because it goes up and it goes down, right? If everything is just up, positive, 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 women get bored. Men are totally happy with that. That's all men want. Men just want, like, I just want to be happy and be pleasant. No drama. Cool. We're happy. Like, just we'll cuddle up on the couch, watch Netflix, have sex, eat great food, happy days.
Totally.
If you do that, that's okay for a short period of time. But if you do that long enough, that will bore women. Women feel safer when they know that there's boundaries.
People feel safer.
People
when
feel
there's
safer.
boundaries.
Well, children feel, like, as another analogy, like children feel safer when the parents put down boundaries. When the parents don't put down boundaries, what do you get? You get delinquent kids. You get kids who run around, like, who do drugs, commit crimes because there was no boundaries enforced and set upon them at a young age. Same thing applies in a relationship. If you don't have boundaries, you don't actually have a relationship. It's just two people doing what the hell they want, irrespective of whatever the other person wants or respects. So if you're enforcing boundaries upon your partner in a relationship, all it is saying this is like the code of conduct in the way that we can respect each other. And I know that you can, if you obey, if you follow these guidelines, these boundaries, I know that you respect me because you are following these guidelines. And that goes both ways, though. Like, I'm not gonna disrespect you or embarrass you publicly. That's like a boundary that she would enforce on me.
And these are agreements that both people have agreed to.
Yeah.
It's one thing to hold somebody to a standard that they don't want to be held to, which is the image that a lot of people conjure, is that like, oh, she wants to be this other thing, but you're controlling her and making her be this.
Yeah, I mean, women are free to walk away at any time.
Yeah.
And so...
Because why would you want a woman in your life that doesn't want to do the things you want to do? Why would you waste that time?
Yeah, you don't want a woman in your life that doesn't want to be there. So, for example, with my girlfriends, if I say, look, you can't be with other men, that's obviously an obvious one, right? But I obviously have multiple girlfriends and step out every now and then. That's about, she doesn't have to be with me. She can walk away whenever she wants, but she understands the arrangement. She understands the situation, and I'm being completely honest with her about it too. So she's an adult. She can make up her own mind about whether she likes that boundary or not, and if she feels safe, playing within those confines. And it's not about like manipulating and controlling people. It's about having standards. Having standards as a man. And men are punished for having standards. You have to do.
And they learn how to do it by testing your boundaries. And the thing that I've noticed is there's a lot of women out there that don't want to be held to a certain standard, but there's a lot of women that get turned on by it.
Yeah.
They're like, you're paying attention. You notice when I've done something that went against your boundaries and you held them. I can trust you.
Yes.
I feel safe with me. You'll stand up to me, therefore you will stand up to them.
Very well put.
To protect me.
Very well put.
And it's like, for me, it's like, I got to make sure. That's one of my tests. It's like where if I set the frame and she's like, ew, fuck you. And it's like, oh, maybe you should go away. Yeah. Whereas if I set the frame and she's like, yes, thank you. Like, I appreciate this. I feel safe in this. And it's like, all right, you can stick around.
Yeah. And you find a lot of women especially very, very beautiful women, who've gone through their whole life with men just supplicating to them, placating them. And then they finally meet a guy who puts his foot down it gets that reaction. It gets that extremely attractive, arousing reaction. Like, oh, this guy, I can't walk a little to him. He actually it keeps me in line. Holy shit, this is sexy.
And I barely even understand that, but you feel it on an emotional and energetic level when it's present.
Yep.
And it's absolutely incredible because it's so counterintuitive to what we're taught. We're taught that, like, oh, you don't tell anybody to do anything. But it's like, no, actually, it works pretty well.
I mean, you have implicitly boundaries like this with friends. Like, you wouldn't... and it's not necessarily like a spoken written agreement either. It's just these are things that are done kind of subconsciously a lot of times. But it's like with your friends, you don't let them just like unless genuinely just disrespect you in front of people.
Yeah, like shit talking is one thing, but like genuine disrespect, like you don't take that.
Yeah, exactly, and because then they wouldn't be your friend anymore. You don't let your friends just steal from you.
Yep.
Because then they wouldn't be your friends. There's obvious boundaries that we have in any relationship we have. Same with your parents. Like you don't disrespect them. You don't hit your mother.
No.
Like this kind of stuff. There's obvious things that people are already having boundaries and enforcing these boundaries with other people. They just don't realize it. Because it's kind of like part of the social contract and the social construct we live in.
And on like an existential level, it makes a lot of sense because if you were to just to extrapolate women and treat them as emotions, and then you extrapolate men and treat them as the mind has to contain the emotions. Otherwise, there's chaos and dysregulation. And so if you're going to get into a polarized dynamic and you're going to hold the mental frame while she holds the emotional frame, those emotions have to be contained. Otherwise, they create chaos and dysfunction and just fuck everything up. So it tracks on an existential level as well.
That's cool.
Like, we need this shit. Like, you can't allow chaos to just be chaos. It has to be contained.
Yeah, and she wants a guy who isn't going to be as emotional as her. She wants a guy who's going to be stoic around that because it's like she can freak out, and if something goes wrong, like we missed our flight. Oh no! She doesn't want the guy who's also freaking out.
Totally.
She wants the guy who's like, cool, relax, baby, I got it. Don't worry.
Because they're also complementary skills. It's like I treat my own feminine side and I treat the sensitive women in my life as my radar. Like they sense things in the environment that I can't. They may not necessarily always know what to do about them.
Right.
They may not necessarily have the solution, but they'll be like, that doesn't feel right. Or that's off. And then that'll signal me to look into it and be like, yo, you were right. That was off. So here's what I'm going to do about it.
Right.
And so like that's the beauty of that whole feminine thing is it can feel into the environment and feel all these sensitive things. But because of that, it's less grounded. And it needs the counterpart to be like, yeah, okay, you can be the whatever sensitive thing. I'm going to be over here holding it down, making sense of what you're feeling and using it to guide us forward. And like that interplay is so valuable to so many different areas of life, like to child rearing, to decision making, to everything. It's like having both sides of the input. It's just without it, you're leaving so much information on the table.
Yep.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit and we can start talking about like what you're doing now. Because you told me that you're doing some travel, you're relocating, you've got a new YouTube series coming out. So tell me about that.
Yeah, it hasn't launched yet, and probably by the time we put this out, it still wouldn't come out. But I'm gonna create a second YouTube channel based around like the digital nomad lifestyle and getting multiple residencies, moving overseas, the differences between cultures across countries, because that's something I have a lot of knowledge about. And for me, it's been really interesting seeing the differences between, say, Australia and America moving across here. I used to live, so I've lived in Australia, I've lived in England, I've lived in Hungary, I've lived in the Czech Republic. Where else have I lived? Obviously in America. And I've lived in South America for a bit of time too. And it's just, and I've obviously purely traveled to a bunch of different countries as well. But the interesting thing about like America is one of its biggest exports is culture. So every other country basically understands American culture because we get your movies, we get your music, right? We get your sitcoms, your fashion, all this stuff. Like everybody in the Western world knows about the TV show Friends. Everyone in the Western world knows about like Kanye or Kim Kardashian or Cardi B, all this stuff. We know all this stuff. But the culture exchange is only one way. So like Americans don't have a clue about Australian music and Australian movies and Australian pop culture.
Not a single thing.
Not a single thing. Or English movies and pop culture, et cetera, right? It's all one way. So it's really interesting as like a non-American coming to America. You already kind of understand a lot about this country.
Oh yeah, that is interesting.
Purely through movies and stuff. Like I've never played American football in my entire life, but I know about like college football, and I know about like things like this.
Like just hometown heroes. And all
this kind of stuff. Like I know what a quarterback is, but I never played the sport. You know what I'm saying? Purely because we get it through all your different movies and things. But I think there's a movement now of like digital nomads. Like it's becoming a lot more. Being a digital nomad is a lot more accessible these days than it used to be.
For sure.
Because we're moving progressively to like an online world, an online economy. Most jobs you don't need to be at home for anymore. Obviously, with the exception of like physical, like actually building something
like
in the real world, right? Then you need to be there present. But there's a whole lot of the economy that you don't need to be present in an office for now. So being a digital nomad is a lot more accessible to a lot of guys than it used to be. And I remember that when I made my first $100,000 online, it was one of the most happiest moments of my life because I'd been trying to get to that point for about 8 years. And I'd been through a couple of businesses before that, but there were businesses that kind of trapped me in one physical location and demanded that kind of time. And
I'm sure porn was like that.
Yeah, well, porn was actually interesting. It allowed me to travel quite a bit. Because I was shooting in all these different countries, and even here in America, I was able to go to different cities and shoot stuff. So it allowed a little bit of freedom to that, but you're absolutely right. I have to be on set for like 8 hours to get this paycheck. Right? Whereas when I made that first $100,000 online, I was like, I made it. Now I've made like a lot more, consider like 7 figures, plus. But at that time, I probably hadn't been happier. Reaching that first little milestone of I made this much money purely online, location independent. I'm not trapped anymore. Like
especially after 8 years of trying.
There's a freedom element to it, right? And people can get to that. It's a bit hard. It's a bit harder if you're, say, working a trade. But I know people who've worked trade jobs who run big, real world businesses who are able to extract their time from and their time in their location freedom. But there's a need, I think, to educate people, especially Americans, about what options you have internationally. Because we talked about this a little bit before. America's a little bit. I personally think America's on the decline. Definitely culturally, it's something. It's not what it used to be.
No,
there's not cohesion in this country, and so I think if you have the ability to, you should investigate your options overseas. Like go where you're treated best. Is kind of my attitude towards it. So
what are you like? Because I agree that America's in the decline. But what do you think is worth getting away from? Like, what are the warning signs you see that are like, maybe I don't want to be here?
For your health, like your exposure in America, your exposure to a lot of bad stuff. Like in the food here, just something as simple as high fructose corn syrup is in everything. The bread has sugar in it.
And it's not like that in other countries.
No, it's completely different.
Yeah.
It's completely different. When I go to Europe, I lose weight instantly without changing anything. And a lot of my friends have had that experience too. And so you're bombarded with lots of high fructose corn syrup. You're bombarded with seed oils and soybean oils and all manner of like artificially engineered oils and food additives and preservatives and things. And it's so far removed from, what somebody in, say, the 1920s would have been eating.
Totally.
What our ancestors would have been eating when they were, which is super healthy for us. And you look at the decline of male testosterone levels over the last 50 years, year on year on year declining. And it's like, for me, that's one of the biggest reasons to kind of get away from.
Do you know if that's at least somewhat uniquely American problem?
No, that's everywhere.
Okay.
That's actually everywhere. I think it's exacerbated here. One of the reasons for that is estrogen, or estradiol, I should say, in the water table, in the water supply.
Interesting.
Which comes from the birth control pill. So people, you can look. The great resource for this is a book called Estrogeneration by Anthony Jay. You read that book and you'll become extremely paranoid, but it'll also help you understand what's going on. So estradiol is basically the estrogen mimicking compound that's in the birth control pill. It doesn't get absorbed fully by the female body, so a lot of it is urinated out, and then it ends up in like the municipal water supply because. I'm not saying like the pee does, but the estradiol itself, because it's not filtered out The filters in the municipal water supply are there to filter out bacteria, viruses, these kind of things. But you do get some of these organic compounds that make it through. And they've been, like, municipal water supplies have been tested, and they've shown that they have estradiol. So, like, you're literally drinking water and showering in water that is lowering your testosterone year on year on year.
That's incredible.
You can fix it though. You can fix it with charcoal water filters. So,
charcoal. Oh, yeah. I just got one for my shower. Amazing.
Yeah. You can actually fix shower heads and like under the sinks or whatever. You can retrofit this all with activated charcoal filters, which can get rid of all that. So
charcoal.
The E is this activated charcoal. That's the solution. It's super easy to fix.
Okay.
But most people don't even know that problem exists in the first place. So then they're like, because I just look at the environment when you start to see all this stuff. I'm like, we're proactively working. Like, we've got to proactively fight our own environment to stay naturally healthy. Mm-hmm. Forget about like, oh, you have to eat super well and do all this sort of stuff.
We have to fight to stay 2 times weaker than our grandfathers were.
Yeah, basically.
That's insane.
Yeah, which is nuts. And so for me, like, the long-term solution is literally like a homestead. With my own cow, my own chickens, my own water supply. Like, I know where everything comes from. I can see where my food comes from. You're more connected to it, which is the way my grandparents lived. And I think they were a lot healthier than the average person is today. So
sure.
I think long term, that's really the solution I see.
Well, I have a question about that, because I hear 2 different things about this. Because I hear the nomad lifestyle, which kind of appeals to me more, rather than consolidating all of my shit in one spot.
Yeah.
So if somebody were to come and want to take it, all they have to do is go to one place, and all of my shit is fucked.
Yeah, this is a kind of an argument I've been tossing back and forth in my own head, honestly, because I've kind of been living that digital nomad lifestyle for the last couple of years. It's very free, but at a certain point, when I have kids and want to raise a family, I can't do that as a digital nomad.
Sure.
And if I want to have kids, I want my kids to be as healthy as they possibly can be. It's going to have to be, okay, raise them on a homestead. Like, we produce our own stuff. It's all, organic. It's in touch with nature. It's as healthy as I can possibly get it for them. So I know from day one, my kids are not being poisoned. Basically.
And I do have to say, 2 of the men that I know and love and respect the most in my life, they've both done that. And like, they fucked off to the middle of nowhere to start a family and start a farm, and they're the happiest they've ever been.
Bro, there is once you see this, and once you start talking to lots of like multimillionaires, they're all coming to the same conclusion.
Really?
They're all doing the same thing. I know about a dozen guys who've done exactly this.
Yeah, one of the guys I'm talking about like runs a $100 million hedge fund.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a slouch. He's just like, I just want to live in the middle of nowhere with my babies and my chickens.
Yeah. And I think because they have so much money, they've kind of come to that conclusion that they're able to execute on it very, very easily. Now, that might seem like it's unattainable to most people, but it's not, because land, especially in America, land in America is stupidly cheap, and there's so much of it. America is so big, people don't realize how enormous this country is, and there's all these flyover states. The places that no one wants to live.
They're beautiful.
They're amazing. Those are the places I want to live. Mm-hmm. That's where I would love to. Like, that's a great place to build a homestead, to get away from all this crap. Mm-hmm. Now, unfortunately, what you've just had recently with all this factories exploding mysteriously, train derailments mysteriously, like the 10% of like Ohio's water supply got poisoned, like crap like that. To me, that's just more. That's another reason to sort of get away from big urban centers and find a plot of land that you and your family can like look after for generations to come. So you've at least got like some future for your grandkids, because I just don't see it going in a positive, like, big city life. I don't see it going in a positive direction. Just because of what, like, look where we're at now, and I just don't see the trajectory looks like it's going in a shit direction. So
I mean, I've been in LA for long enough to have to board up my own neighborhood during the riots.
Right.
To like be walking down Melrose and see cop cars flipped over and light on fire just as I'm shopping. I've that's the life I've lived in, and I know trying to get out of LA under the best of circumstances is terrible.
Yeah.
So I imagine trying to get out if some shit actually went down, and it's just like, you might as well not even try.
Yeah. That's another, like, I'm obviously talking about extreme scenarios,
sure.
But like, I if you don't really prepare for that, I think like you're literally putting your life at risk to even consider that.
Especially just because the internal conflict is beginning so more and more out of control, and it doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon.
Yeah.
It's like, that has to hit a head at some point, and I don't want to be in one of the densest cities in the country when that happens.
Yeah, man, I agree. And it's so my current the things I'm weighing up over the course of the next year are literally going to be like, okay, where this kind of future lifestyle I want to build, will I be building it somewhere in Europe, or will I be building it somewhere in America, or will I be building it somewhere in South America? The three places I'm tossing up are Kentucky, Poland, and Argentina. They might seem very different.
I'm sure that sentence has never been said by anyone.
Probably not. But they've all got similar things. They've all got like lots of land, great for grazing, cattle, plenty of fresh water, like mountains and shit like this, and isolation. Like they've got plenty of isolation. So
I would say Argentina is like you can just live out the rest of your life in peace. And
it's at the end of the world, man. But the problem with Argentina is that it's like South America has a tendency to fall into communist dictatorships.
Yeah, that does happen.
And they tend to come and take your shit.
They do
so
that.
That's that's the third one. Poland, I like Poland. It's got great grazing land. The Polish people are very, very like positive, and they're actually very Catholic. They as far as I'm aware, they teach boys how to box in schools and stuff. Like they're very, very like traditional people. The land is great, very healthy. I just think it's from what I've seen, it's like a good place to be.
Nice.
Yeah.
So are you of the mind that like you kind of recommend people start like getting their shit in order?
Yeah, man. Like if you like, I had this conversation with a friend yesterday. Like, if you think about these kind of things, you're probably in the top 1% of the human population. Most people don't even consider this stuff. They don't have a plan, And obviously, okay, if you don't have much money, it's hard to start making a plan.
But then you just need community.
Bingo. So you don't have to buy one plot of land for yourself. If you have a bunch of brothers and a bunch of friends, we'll just split it up between the bunch of you, and you can raise a massive community to get there's nothing stopping you from doing that.
Especially because all you need to do is pool the money for the plane tickets, go to like Argentina, and then it's so much easier to do that.
Figure out the residency details. Figure out how to do that sort of stuff. I'm not necessarily recommending Argentina is the spot for everyone, but it was just an example. But yeah, it's.
But even where we met in Guadalajara.
Yeah.
And like the shit our friends have set up there is incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You can have a little like Americans don't realize the kind of lifestyle they can actually have outside of America.
I was blown away. I was like, okay, I'm going to Guadalajara, like that, whatever. And then I got there and I was like, wow, especially the place I met you at. It was incredible and beautiful. It opened my eyes to how much more beauty there is in the world, especially because I grew up in California.
Yeah.
I was born in Orange County, lived in San Francisco for 8 years, and now I'm in LA. I had lived in California my whole life.
Yeah.
I've been to Europe a few times. I've been to Japan. I've been around. But still, growing up in that bubble, I'm becoming aware of just how ignorant I am to the rest of the world. Especially like with Dylan being in Paraguay.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, what the fuck? Paraguay's beautiful? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And there's just so many more places. And so, do you experiment with new places? Like...
I have been over the last couple of years, basically. Yeah, like bouncing around to different spots, and that's why my intention is to move to Spain in a couple of weeks. This small like beach town, great community of guys there, very healthy, great gym. Kind of isolation. It's not a busy city. It's kind of exactly what I'm looking for. I reckon.
Amazing.
Where I can just sit down and work and make a bunch of money, save up. The goal for this year is literally like get 2 women pregnant, save up enough money, and then save up enough money to buy a homestead. That's literally like just put that money away.
Both women living on the homestead?
That's the plan, yeah. And then maybe 2 or 3 or 4 more.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's the bridge I'll cross when I get to it.
Right. So what advice do you have for any guy who's starting to see things go in a way that he doesn't really like, but he is actually kind of broke? And it's just like, fuck, I got to do something for me and my family.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Well, step one is try to make more money. Literally, like money equals freedom. It really does. And you don't realize this until you have money, how much freedom it can actually buy you. It's crazy. So obviously, try to find a way to make more money. It's not as hard as you think. You just have to kind of do things that people aren't willing to do.
Yeah, you have to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, there's a lot of millionaires who do like waste disposal, porta potty disposal, like sanitary napkin disposal, like
plumbing
stuff, like jobs that no one wants to do pay well. Like, so stop. Everyone wants to be a freaking TikTok influencer or a YouTube star or whatever that crap. And that's just ironic me having a YouTube channel saying that. But like, I never wanted to be like a YouTuber. Like, it's
plus you make your money from other areas.
I use it as a funnel to literally help men improve their sex life. So it's like, okay, that's the means to the end, I guess. But step one, if you want to make a bit of money, learn valuable skills that people are willing to pay you money for, aka saving that. How can you save somebody else time and money or solve problems for other people? That's what people pay money for, to have their problems solved.
And if you want to make a lot of money quick, solve problems for rich people.
Bingo, yeah.
So like copywriting is an amazing thing that like you can learn relatively easy. And in
I
order to become rich, you used to have to go bang on doors.
Yeah.
Now you just have to send emails.
I actually kind of disagree with the copywriting thing because I think copywriting is a super, like the barrier to entry is low. I think if you can, you're more likely to make money in an industry where the barrier to entry is a bit higher, and no one wants to do it.
Got it. So what do you, especially because we're talking about the whole digital thing, because like if you go into like plumbing or waste disposal, it's like you would have to get that job wherever you go. What would you recommend for a guy that wants to learn a skill that he could take with him somewhere?
Yeah, sales. Like there is fundamentally the best skill on the planet for making money is like sales and marketing. If you can make somebody else money, they'll pay you for it. If somebody came to me right now with a no-brainer offer, hey, I will run, anyone watching it, I will run all your like Google ads, Facebook ads, YouTube ads for you, and I will not and you won't pay for the ads. If somebody said this to me, I'll pay for all the advertising cost, and then you get you just make the profit. We split the profit on the other end. That is a no-brainer deal, and I would take that up in an instant, right?
I just hired a guy who pitched that to me.
Right. So that's the idea. Like if you know how to make people money, you will never be out of a job, and you will always make money.
And sales will never not need to be a thing.
Yeah. Every company needs to grow and make more money. So it's like, okay, if that's a fundamental skill, and especially I see a lot of young guys who are helping, YouTube brands and influencers grow themselves because they've mastered the art of like a TikTok video edit or whatever. Like, I have guys on my team who do exactly that for me. Like, if you're a younger guy, these are skills you can pick up right now.
You can charge like $500 a TikTok for that.
Being ahead of the curve with that, like understanding, seeing what's happening, seeing the new trends on social media sites and things, and AI is becoming really big now. And people, I think, early adopters of new technology like that will be the ones who really crush it and make more money. Yeah. To circle back to the original question. Okay, like step one, like we said, make more money. And step two, if you wanted to, if you see things aren't going the way you want them to go and you're looking for a solution long term, surround yourself with other like-minded men. You've got to find other like-minded guys. Yeah. Otherwise, you'll be screwed.
That's so important, man. Like, can you talk a little bit about, because I used to I was loyal to my homies, Like, I didn't want to admit that the people in my life were keeping me stuck. But then after I left a certain group of people and I started getting new people in my life, the difference was so enormous, and it can be so shitty to admit that your friends, while you love them, are holding you down and are not going to help you become the man that you want to be.
Yeah, they're not on the same journey as you.
Yeah,
and it's like it sucks, but you got to let them go. You really do. Like, doesn't mean you don't love them. I mean, if any of my old friends reach out to me, I'm always going to talk to them. Sure. I'm always going to say hi. But it's just the reasons for us to hang around become less and less and less over the years. Because
they're going to pull you in whatever direction they're going in if you spend enough time with them.
Or they're gonna feel, what's more likely to happen is they're gonna start to feel resentment for you if you're being successful. If you're making moves and being successful and they're not, they're gonna feel resentment and they're gonna try and stop you or drag you down in some way.
That's such an important thing, man. Is having friends that aren't jealous of you and aren't envious of you. Like, it's one thing to have people pull you in a positive direction, but like you said, because Jordan Peterson has this thing about like a good friend is someone that you can tell bad news to, but it's also someone you can tell good news to.
Right.
And I remember when I was finally starting to come up and starting to make more money than I never had, I started to notice that like, okay, I probably shouldn't celebrate around certain people. Yeah. Because like he's not doing as good and he's going to start feeling bad. And then that same guy started stealing from me. And so I was like, okay, gotta cut you loose, motherfucker. But that stuff that's one, like we talked about how cold the world is. That's one of those things that is just cold and heartless. Yeah. Like, you will become who you spend time with. And if they don't celebrate your wins with you, they will subtly try to sabotage them. Absolutely. And that is just the cold, hard facts of reality and something that as a man you have to make peace with. Yeah. And it's a good litmus test for like the kind of men you want to surround yourself with. If you go to them and you say, hey, yo, I just made like a bunch of money on this thing, if they're not ecstatic for you, start questioning it. Exactly. Really start questioning it. And generally, they're probably only going to be ecstatic for you if they're making moves themselves, like I said.
So it's really it's a real great filter, personally.
So I've pretty much covered everything I wanted to talk about. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, it's been very, very good conversation.
Awesome, dude. So do you have any things that you want to plug, any projects you're working on?
If you guys want to find out more about what I do, what I teach, just go to stirlingcooper.com, STIRLINGCOOPER.com, and you can find all my ebooks, all my video courses, links to all my YouTube, my Instagram, my Twitter. It's all there. It's the one-stop shop for everything.
And the thing I really like about your work is, like I said, you don't have the like pearl clutching attitude, but you don't also have the like cold shower boner thing that everyone has. It's just like, yeah, okay, cold showers are fine and everything, but like you could just be a man. Like that is an option, and like that.
You put that.
That's the approach that I get from you, and I appreciate that so much because I find people fetishizing cold showers and saunas and all these things, and while they're good,
these are, like I agree with all of those things. By the way, like those are all
course,
good things
good.
to do. But I'm not sitting there defining my personality about the fact that I don't masturbate or something. And I think that's the problem I see. Like people will define their personality around like I'm a no fapper or I'm like a cold shower guy or whatever. And
then that becomes a religion.
Yeah, they're tools, man. They're tools for you to use to improve your life.
Exactly right.
Not to define who you are.
Yeah, and not like the savior of masculinity. Like it's cold water. It's always existed. You know? Like,
it's always been there.
Awesome, bro. Well, thank you so much, man. It's an absolute pleasure to hang out.